This is NPR's All Things Considered. I'm Robert Siegel.
And I'm Linda Wertheimer. Tomorrow night is Halloween, so we bring you a scary tale of a man who one day vanished into thin air. The legend of the disappearance of David Lang drew commentator Michael Ivey to Lang's hometown in central Tennessee.
There's a reason why you rarely hear a producer's voice on the radio. A producer's job is to be invisible. A producer arranges and schedules, providing all the necessary support for a person like me to tell a story. Well, for this story, about the mysterious disappearance of a man in Gallatin, Tennessee, producer Art Silverman, well, he sort of became my story. And the truth is, it was Art's story to begin with. Art Silverman.
I had this book, Stranger Than Science, as a kid, and I read the story. It never left me. It was amazing to me. Everything else were scary stories in there, but this was broad daylight. It was a disappearance. There was no
Art
moral,
was 7 years old when he first read about the mysterious disappearance of David Lang, a farmer who just vanished in broad daylight. And you're probably saying to yourself, yeah, right. Well, then you go to Gallatin, Tennessee and talk to those folks. Art and I did, and they all know and believe the mystery of David Lang.
I've heard this story all my life. Heard the legend of David Lang.
But I don't know what year, but it's somewhere on the Long Haul of Pike.
Back in the mid to late 1800s.
He had a wife. He had 2 children.
One day, while he was out gardening, his kids were playing. They asked him to come play with them.
Turned around, they looked up, saw their dad, turned around, turned back around, their dad was gone.
He was gone.
And he just vanished.
Never been seen again.
No sign of him, no hole in the ground, no nothing. Just disappeared in the thin air.
They turned around and he was just gone, apparently just swallowed up by the earth. Just gone.
And they cannot find any holes where he might have dropped into a bottomless pit or anything.
Just gone.
His wife began to dig into that ground and broke all of her fingernails, screaming for her husband.
Finally, after about a week, just gave him up for dead. Nobody knew. Well, the kids were playing in the same area. They stumbled across where the dad was, and there was a crack in the ground. Pretty good-sized little crack.
They heard this weak voice from under the earth calling, help, 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 help.
But after a while, that voice faded away.
The crack was there no more.
It is the story of a man who disappeared in the plain view of observers.
That's the way I hear it.
The legend of David Lang. Well, a legend is an unbelievable tale within the framework of believable truth, right? Well, I was thinking legend. My producer Art Silverman was thinking missing person case. So he made an appointment with the one man in Gallatin who specializes in that sort of thing.
It's pretty simple to locate someone.
Bail bondsman Butch Woodard is a cross between a bloodhound and a bounty hunter. 26 years in law enforcement work, and the former tag team partner of professional wrestler Tojo Yamamoto. Butch had a tip on how to find a missing person.
Well, let me give you an example. Bubba Ray didn't show up for court one day, and we went up and talked to his family, and they advised us they hadn't seen him. I said, well, if y'all find him, let me know where he is, and I get him, I'll give you $50. When I got home at night, I got 6 phone calls from the family wanting that $50.
The most valuable thing Butch Woodard did was to refer us to Mayor Don Wright. Mayor Wright offered a David Lang theory shared by many Gallatin residents.
Just the fact that they described what we today would believe to be an alien abduction. Yeah, and they described it to a T. The only thing I can't seem to get a grip on is where it was, and I don't know if anybody knows exactly the location today.
Just as we left the mayor's office, I don't know, maybe it was Art's repressed childhood anxiety surfacing. He seemed a little weirded out. But it's not unusual for a journalist to operate off a hunch. So I didn't question Art when he told me that he was feeling a pull. A pull he described as a feeling like being pecked by invisible ducks. A pull that led us to the farm of a lifelong resident of the area, Sally Robb Greer.
I would really like to know. I think it's odd that it would be perpetuated that long. If something hadn't happened. What do you do when you go from being you into... Do you transmigrate? Is that a term?
Art Silverman.
I've heard that term. I don't know how this works, but I have heard of something that scientists call wormholes in time. There's a theory, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Sally politely let Art ramble on for quite some time. Then she opened an old book and produced a crumbling yellow newspaper clipping. Art snatched it from her hand, glanced down at it, and then let out a yes. Well, in the time it takes to say thank God it's a rental car, we were sitting in the morgue of Gallatin's tri-weekly newspaper, the News Examiner, talking with reporter Kitty Kulikowski.
Well, I kind of believe it's like the Bermuda Triangle. I think they beamed Scotty up.
Kitty gave us the one big fact we were looking for. The place where David Lang disappeared was on the outskirts of Gallatin at the Long Hollow Golf Course.
In fact, I always laughed and said it's on the 9th hole out at the golf course where he disappeared.
Art and I immediately went to the Long Hollow Golf Course, where golf pro Mickey Averett confirmed Kitty's information.
The people that tell the story and tell it well, tell it here on the golf course, this sinkhole right over between number 8 and number 9 holes.
Mickey offered to take us to the site immediately. I was all for it, but Art flatly declined, explaining that it was already dusk and that he wanted to step into the exact spot in broad daylight, as in the Lang story. Art mentioned a theory he had come up with about Lang being stuck sideways in time and how he planned to call David Lang back by telling him to run to the light. We planned to go to the mysterious spot between the 8th and 9th hole at 4 p.m. the next day. The word must have spread through Gallatin like wildfire that day, because by the time Art and I arrived, over 100 people had gathered at the golf course, including town dignitaries, the police and fire departments, a dozen or so Boy Scouts, a professional psychic, and the Gallatin High School marching band. And to support Art, I became the impromptu MC of this epic scene. Mr. Police Chief of Gallatin, Walter Tangle, if y'all give him a big hand. I'll hold it for you.
And we're very happy to be here this afternoon, and I hope we make some resolution to the David Lang mystery.
So, Art Silverman is a senior producer for All Things Considered at National Public Radio. He's going to stand on the spot where David Lang disappeared. So, Art, would you come up and say a few words? Art? This isn't good. Art! Art! Art Silverman! Art!
Commentator Michael Ivey. He had help from Scott Smith of Nashville Public Radio.
You're listening to NPR's All Things Considered.